Hi everybody and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel, and if you're returning, thank you so much as always for being here. I love you guys so much. I'm excited about today's video. I've got 5 new projects, one of which is a gift idea. So let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number 1. This is my inspiration picture. It was something that I saw on Pinterest. I thought it was really pretty. So I have these slices of wood from a tree that we cut down. My brother had sliced them up for me. And then this is a leftover Dollar Tree wreath form that I'd already pulled out the middle ring from. I tried to pull it apart and it was pretty solid. So I ended up just having to clip out all of those little connectors. So I'm just trying to figure out how it's going to sit on there, and I used a chenille stem and just wrapped that around and around. I used a dark green because I figured that would blend in with my greenery. So once I had all 3 rings set, I went ahead and grabbed these garland ties from the Dollar Tree. I believe they come in a set of 10, it might be 12. And I bent them in half as you saw, and I just started wrapping them around the rings, the hoops. So at the base, I was doing it around all 3 hoops, and I just kept kind of tying them on there and setting it up to see how it was looking and try to gauge trying to gauge how many of these I needed to have on there. And as I started working my way up and around the hoops, I went from wrapping them around all 3 hoops to wrapping them around just the 2 hoops, and then eventually just around that outer hoop. And I just kept working it until I made it about halfway around, a little more than halfway around the hoop as far as where the branches landed. So I just kept checking my inspiration picture and kind of kept going until I had it about where I wanted it there. So fluffed it all up a little bit, and then I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to anchor it. So I did use my staple gun, and those were, I think they're 1/2-inch staples. They are whatever the longest staple is that you can get for these little staple guns. So I did that, and then I used a generous amount of hot glue just so that it could get down in there and make its way into the wood as well. So now I am taking fairy lights, and I had shared these with you a few videos back, I think, but I do have them in my Amazon store, and there's a link in my description box for these if you have interest. So the link is to my Amazon storefront, and these are in the storefront. So I just wrapped them around and around on each of the hoops, and I did turn them on just so I could see where they were and how I was positioning them, and I thought it also might make it a little bit easier for you to see what I was doing. Once I got up to the top, I did kind of jump from that top hoop into the middle hoop, but in a place where the greenery would camouflage that. And then I worked my way back down. Once I ran out of length, I ended up using 2 sets of the fairy lights. These are wire basically. So as I'm wrapping them, they are kind of staying put, right? So it's like little lights on wire. I don't know how else to describe it, but when I ran out of the one, I just secured it down by wrapping it around, and it stayed put. And then I started with a new strand. So worked my way all the way back down. So I've got it around all 3 hoops, and then I tucked it under the greenery. And I did not glue down those little on-off switches, by the way, because I want to be able to access them and replace the batteries if and when needed. Excuse me. So now I'm ripping apart one of my little picks. As you know, I'm always pulling these things apart and putting some little poinsettias in here. There's a pine cone, some berries, and you can decorate these however you want. I'm going to be adding some of those little Dollar Tree bulbs. These are all Dollar Tree materials except for the fairy lights and that wood slab that's from my backyard. So I'm just positioning everything where it makes my heart happy. So gluing down the bulbs, and then I'm going to drop a little red one in there as well. And that's it, you guys. I love this, and I hope you like it too. DIY number 2. So for this project, I have a wood round. It was part of a pack of, I believe it was 3 from the Hobby Lobby. I've had it for a while. And I gave that a coat of my white paint, and then my little Farm Fresh cutout. That's from the Dollar Tree. It was a pack of like 6 different ones, and I gave that a red coat. And then I decided that I didn't want the white super white, so I used a little tiny bit of antique wax by Waverly, and I'm going over this with a baby wipe. Once it was dry, I secured my little Farm Fresh sign with hot glue, and then I grabbed some tumbling tower blocks, and I was thinking that these would make good tree trunks. Eventually, I did swap that out, but for the time being, I'm just trying to decide how I want to form my little branches for my evergreen trees. So I'm just giving them a little haircut because sometimes these little evergreen ties look better when they are just like trimmed up. So this is where I decided that I didn't really like the tree trunks. So I grabbed some skewers. These are also from the Dollar Tree. And I cut them down. I cut them 3 of them the same length. And once I had those all cut, I went over them with the antique wax too. And I made them nice and brown so that they would stand out against that backdrop. So I got all of my little branches ready, and I've got them kind of prepared on my sign the way I want them all lined up, just trying to figure out how they're going to be positioned here. So once I had them pretty much the way I wanted them, I went ahead and blown away all the little extra the haircut remnants. And I am hot gluing down my little tree trunks, and then I'm going to come back with my branches and secure those as well. So just a little drop of glue right on the skewer where I want to place my branch, and I am just gluing all those down. And I did that with all 3 of the trees. And I did offset that middle one. So each of the bottoms of those trunks are about the same distance from the edge of the circle. So it just makes them look like they're different heights. And then I decided I wanted to distress it a little bit with some more white paint on the red. And then I decided I also wanted to make my little trees look a little bit flocked and snowy. So I just went over them with a very dry brush and gave them a little bit of white. And that's it. And I love this one too. Let me know what you think. DIY number 3. So do you guys remember this project from a few months ago? We are going to redecorate. Now, we are going to make this for the holidays. You could totally use the little Santa gnome that we did a couple of weeks ago, but I am going to do something different. I bet you can't guess. If you have followed me for any bit of time, you know I love snowmen. So I'm going to make a snowman. I've got a bunch of that little round is like a remnant from some other thing that I pulled apart from the Dollar Tree. I've got a few different sized ornaments. I think one of them might be from Michael's, and then the other 2 are from the Dollar Tree. And I'm using my little this is a wood burning tool. I have yet to use it actually on wood. I usually am melting plastic with it. So I'm cutting out holes in my ornaments, and this is to help them lay flat. So the bottom one, I want to be able to sit flat on the base, and then I want them each to be able to stack nicely and sit one on top of the other. So that's why I did that. So you can see here that they stack just nicely. So there we go. So once I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue my 3 ornaments together. I'm not going to adhere them to the base just yet. I want to make sure that I've got them all set and painted and all of that before that happens. So just using a really good amount of glue and getting my snowman together, and then I came in with paint. And I did kind of like pat it to kind of, make it a mess right now, but to give it a little bit of a snowy effect and a texture to the paint. So a couple of these already had a little bit of texture because of the glitter on them, but hopefully you get what I mean. So now I'm gonna go ahead once it's dry and apply it to its base. And then I'm gonna decorate him. So I'm using one of my Arteza paint markers to kind of get my little orange nose ready, and I'm gonna trim that off. I did blunt the tip of that so it's not super pointy, but making his little carrot nose. And I'm gonna do just a teeny tiny little dab of paint on there, or paint, hot glue, so I could stick it to his face. Now, these little branches are from my stash. They came from a twig broom that I've been using for projects. It was one that I'd gotten at the grocery store. It smelled like cinnamon. I don't know. I've been making all kinds of stuff with it for like a year now. So I went ahead and cut those down, applied his little arms, and now I am using black adhesive felt to make his eyes, to make his mouth, and to make his little buttons. And I'm just going to kind of speed through this because I'm sure you all know exactly how to do this. So I just cut them all by hand. No, template or anything like that, but just got him all dolled up. And then I went to my stash and I pulled out, this is a Keurig cup. So this is my trash to treasure part of the project. But I kind of bent that little hole back out again so it was hidden, painted it black with my chalk paint. I had these tiny little red berries that I set down there on my craft table. And now I am cutting out some holly leaf shapes. You can totally draw on the back of the felt and then cut out your drawing. I just kind of winged it. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply these to his little hat so he is all handsome and adorned. So getting the little holly leaves on there, and then I'll add the berries right there in the middle. And this was like a double set of berries. It was like 6 total. So I put a little glue on the 3 and I was holding on to the others so I didn't burn myself. And then I just pulled them away. So once his hat is all done, I'm going to apply some hot glue to the inner rim and putting that on his little head. And then I went and grabbed this ribbon from my stash. This is one of my Kirkland ribbons, and I thought it was really cool because it goes from like a dark cranberry color and fades kind of rainbowish, but it goes from that dark cranberry all the way down to green. And I just thought it was a really pretty little ribbon that I could create a scarf with. So it is a wired ribbon, so you can see it's kind of giving it some shape. Maybe it's fluttering in the wind, I don't know. But I just tied that around his neck, and then I evened up the ends. And sometimes I find it really hard to cut these ribbons. They want to like slide away from my scissors. I don't know why that is, but then I just kind of like frayed up the ends a little bit. So now I am taking some more of these garland ties. I'm taking one and just creating a circle, bending it all around itself so that it remains in a hoop. And I am going to start doing the same thing that we did earlier around those other hoops, but this time we're going to make a full wreath. So just cutting these in half, then bending them, the halves in half, and wrapping them around our little circle. So I'm going to adorn this with some, I'm calling these mini poinsettias. I think there's another name for it, and I can't remember what it is. I got them at the Dollar Tree, but these little cute red flowers, I thought that they'd look really pretty on our wreath. So I'm just kind of piecing the leaves together with the flower buds and getting those all set on the wreath. Then I'm coming in with some Dollar Tree ribbon. This is a really pretty red satin ribbon, and it's got some gold running through it, and I just thought it was really pretty. So just creating loops, and then I'm going to create the little piece that makes the bow. I'm just basically tying a knot around it, and then I'll also use that piece that I just tied to attach it to the little mini wreath here. So tucking that through the garland ties and around the back, grabbing a hold of it and tying what was supposed to be a knot. It wasn't quite long enough to do a double knot, so I came in and I secured it with some hot glue. And then I just trimmed off the ends and put down a little extra glue just to make sure that it wasn't going to come undone. So now we have our wreath to adorn our lamppost. So there's our little snowman and our little wreath. So far, so good. We're gonna add our snow. So I have this, I don't even know what this is called, but it's kind of like a snow blanket that you can use with little Christmas villages. And I am just taking a piece of it that I'd cut up and going to position it around my lamppost. I am not securing this because I do want to be able to switch out the decorations with this lamppost throughout the seasons. So let me know what you think. And now it's time for a shout out timeout. Cute Crystal, look at these adorable projects, so nice. And adorable Iona, thank you so much for sharing these wonderful sweets with us. And beautiful Julie, wonderful garlands and a little Halloween arrangement. And so pretty, Sarah. This wreath is gorgeous. Thank you all so much for sharing with us. If you have interest, I would love to give you a shout out as well. Just send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. So I am using my Fern chalk paint on these Dollar Tree foam. I'm going to call them trees because I don't know what else they might be. I guess they could be Christmas or Christmas cones, ice cream cones. I don't know. It's the only other thing that I can think of. But I have this awesome wrap that my sweet subscriber Rose sent to me. She sent me a whole bunch of craft supplies. So thank you again, Rose, for your generosity. But I'm just going to wrap this first little tree with this, I'm going to call it bling wrap for lack of a better term. I decided I wanted to do some glam Christmas trees. I don't normally do glam. I do like bling every once in a while. So this is my blingy Christmas stuff. So once I had the base of this wrapped around, I went ahead and started trimming off some of the excess because this obviously does taper as it goes from the bottom up to the top, and so I wanted all of this to lay as flat as possible. So it was a little bit tedious, I'm not gonna lie, but I just kind of took my time with it, trimmed it up where I needed to, secured it with hot glue as I went so that it made sure that it was holding, and we made it work. So you can see all the little trimmings there on my table. Once I had both sides of that trimmed down, I went ahead and sealed up that seam. And then I decided I was going to cover the bottom half with another layer. And this I just overlapped in the middle. I made this one a little bit, I didn't take as much time with this one. I decided it was going to be okay if some of it was overlapping in the back. So I didn't cut off quite as much, and I was really okay with that. So if you, really want to have at it and make sure that the whole thing is just a little minimal seam down the back, you can certainly do that. But I trimmed off some of the excess along the bottom and just kind of made like a little bit of a jagged edge like you might expect with a tree anyway. And then I put a smaller piece up at the top, and that was that for that tree for right now. So our second tree, this is also from Rose. I am using these little pearls. They're so pretty. And I'm just gluing down the string on the strand of pearls to adhere to the top. And then also from Rose, these fun little crystals I am securing at the top. Trimmed it off. And I'm just gonna wrap this string of beads of pearls, all the way around the tree as many times as it'll wrap. And then I'm securing it with some more glue at the bottom. So there's our second little tree. And the third tree, some more bling wrap. I thought this was gorgeous. I'm gonna go ahead and do our third tree with some of this, the base. So I'm gonna secure it just along the edge with the hot glue. Get that wrapped all the way around the bottom. And as you can see, the styrofoam kind of has like a crease in it. It's not really a crease, it's got an indent at the, so I'm using that as the back of each of my trees. So wherever I'm starting with my seams, I am starting at that kind of indenture at the back of the little trees. So just getting that all sealed down. And then I decided I was going to use this other blingy, I don't know what you would call this. It's almost like a little dainty bracelet kind of material, but it's all little crystals and it's so pretty and shimmery. So I'm using this as you might a garland on your Christmas tree, and I am just draping it and just using a little tiny bit of glue at each of the little points where I want it to be draped. Putting one of these crystals on top of this as well. I am going to be coming back to this. I had something in mind, but I was too excited to see how these would stand up. So I went ahead and took a skewer for each of these little trees and putting it in the center of the tree and just trying to see how they will look once I have them all standing. So back to that third tree, I've got this cute little, very, very thin ribbon. I want to say it's maybe 1/8 of an inch wide. It's super, super thin or narrow. And I'm creating little tie your shoelace bows. That's all these are. So it's just tying a little bow, clipping it off, tying a little bow and clipping it off. And then I'm securing them at each of the little peaks on our garland. So anywhere I glued the garland to the tree, that is where I fastened a little bow. And now I've got these, I think these are actually candle holders from the Dollar Tree. And I've got some Dollar Tree stone. And so I'm going to use these as our little pots for our Christmas trees. So I just put in a bunch of the stone and I worked the little skewer down into the stone. And that's just plenty sufficient to anchor the trees and hold them upright. So I did that with all three. And then I grabbed my Dollar Tree red ribbon again. This is the same ribbon that I used before. And I am going to wrap it around the little base of the tree planters, if you will, for 2 of them. And then the third one, I decided I wanted to wrap it around the middle where my little bling wrap overlaps on the center of that tree. So I'm just wrapping it. I'm hot gluing just the what would you call that? I want to say strand, but that's not quite what I mean. I'm at a loss for words right now, but you know what I mean. So I'm wrapping it, gluing it, just a single band. That's the word I was looking for. So just putting a red band around it. And then once that is secure on each of them, I do come back in and create a little bow that I then adhere. So here we go. Looping, looping. So it's basically just making kind of like an X with the 2 loops, right? And then taking a third piece and wrapping it around the middle and securing that with hot glue. So once I did that, I went ahead and secured it to each of the little seams on the bands. So those seams, those I put in the front of the little trees, right? And on the front of the planters, because that's where the bow is going to go. And then you don't see a seam at all because the bow is hiding it. And then I went ahead and I trimmed off all the ends and they were all set and perky and ready to go. So let me know what you think of these too. DIY number 5. So this is our gift idea. I'm starting with a Dollar Tree candle. I'm just gonna peel off that little label and you can decorate these however you want. And if you've got a different shaped candle, that works too. Probably would have been better if I had had like a wider candle for this project just because of what I ended up doing. But with, I'm just measuring it, trying to figure out how tall it is, how wide it is, so I know how large I will make my decal. I decided I was going to go ahead and give it a coat of paint. I'm using my white Adirondack by Home Decor, because the candle doesn't look real pretty in this glass. Like, it looks like it's adhered to the glass in some places and not in others. And so at any rate, I'm just patting it all over. Once I got the top situated, because I wanted to leave the very top clear. Once I got the very top edge all nice and neat, I came in and I'm just patting it all over. This, I found, gave me better coverage, gave a little bit of texture, and almost made it look like snow. So while that was set aside to dry, I came in with my little Cricut app, and I'm just pulling something up that's already pre-designed in their design space. I'm adding a little love Corie to the base of it because we're personalizing this, right? It can be a cute little gift. I had my little Cricut Joy printed out, or cut it out, I should say. Now, I did think about using a stencil and doing that, and ultimately I just decided I was going to use my vinyl. But you can paint these, you can stencil these, you could do just a pretty pattern with little sponges with paint. I mean, there's so many different things you could do. If you do not have a vinyl cutter, do not fret, because use your imagination and decorate these however makes you happy. So now I'm coming in with some Dollar Tree gingham ribbon, and I'm going to wrap around the bottom. I'm going to create just a simple little band, now that I remember what that word is. And I'm going to put a band around at the top and around the bottom. So these I am going to secure with my little seam at the back, and I flip the ribbon over, or under I should say, at the ends, because I never want to have like a frayed edge. So I've always got a nice clean edge, because I just fold the ribbon underneath and then secure it with the glue. And there you have it. Let me know what you think. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed the projects. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up and leave me a comment, because it really does help my channel to grow. Until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.